Welcome to Coffee with Linda. I'm Linda, and I have a special guest today, Steve Sweeney, who's also an author, and we're going to be sharing parts of the Henry book, which is book 4, and it is To the Moon, Henry. As you might know, Steve, or maybe you don't, that Henry was birthed in Wapakoneta, Ohio, and so was I.
Ooh.
And you know who comes from Wapak, don't you?
No.
No?
No.
Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon.
Goodness.
So, of course, I had to write a book about Henry going to the moon.
Yes.
When I wrote the story, I also wanted to introduce Henry's best friend, Bob. And Bob is a caterpillar. They're on the back cover. And this is Bob. And interesting enough, Bob has acid reflux. And when his tummy gets upset, it turns very, very pink. But in this book, I know, when I told my publisher my idea for the story, she goes, "Oh, come on, Lynn, who's going to believe that, a tulip bulb and a worm build a rocket ship?" I go, I believe.
That's the matter.
So she said, okay. She laughed and said, all right, we're going with it.
I did.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting ride with this. This one actually is the special edition one because, as you see, the city seal of Wapakoneta is on this. And I actually did this book, this one, the special edition one for Wapakoneta.
Oh.
And then there's a special book plate inside here too.
Oh.
Well, I guess I forgot to put a book plate in this one. This one is mine, my office edition.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to read a little bit to you about it. And I always, in my books, always have a gift page where you can actually gift the book to someone. And so I do something a little special. I think we did something special in your book too,
We did
Steve.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No worries. And so this book was actually dedicated because my son Scotty was due to be born the day that Neil walked on the moon, not the moon, the moon, which is July 20th, 1969. Scotty instead was born on July 25th, which is the day that Neil returned to Wapakoneta.
How about that?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, the correlation of how this has all been in my life. I was actually an art director at a TV station, and they asked me if I could write something for a children's program. And I said, well, maybe. And with that, I was planting tulips around the base of my trees, and I started to think about what a tulip bulb goes through to become a flower. And Henry was birthed right there in Wapakoneta, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
I know. So it was natural for me to do this book. Wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Henry the tulip bulb had never been to outer space. Having been birthed in the little town of Wapakoneta, Ohio, home of the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Henry had always, though, been very curious about seeing things from that side of the solar system. In fact, Henry had dreamed and designed plans for building a rocket ship and attempting the journey, but he didn't want to do it alone. That's where Henry's best friend Bob came into the picture. However, Bob, a caterpillar, has anxiety problems. Bob's tummy turns hot and pink when he gets nervous. Still, when Henry asked Bob if he'd like to go to the moon with him, Bob was all for it and decided right then and there to overcome any feelings of apprehension. And this is where they're in their tool shed, and Henry asked Bob, what do you think we should make the rocket ship out of? And Bob's going, I don't know, I've got a big cardboard box, maybe we could do that. So then Henry starts to think, what's going to happen if we get a little too close to the sun? And I smell my pants are on fire. Not a good smell. No. So,
Kind of reminds me of fish and loaves. You just take what you got.
yeah,
Go with that.
yeah, exactly. Intently they pored over their plans. What should they make it out of? How will they launch it? How close would they get to the sun? What would cardboard be enough to protect them? What? Cardboard? I think not, said Henry. And then he also starts to think about, okay, parachuting back home? That's going to take a very, very long time. Henry'd be an old bolt by then, wouldn't he? Suddenly they heard a gentle voice saying, hello, why not ask me, and I will give you wisdom for building your rocket. After all, I'm the one who guided Noah while building the ark. So for 40 days and nights, Bob and Henry worked and welded in their tool shed, building the rocket ship. Meanwhile, they chatted, molded, munched on Starry Bites, that's their favorite cookie, and spoke with a voice, gathering wisdom and collecting understanding.
Aw.
It was a wonderful time. There's Bob and Henry in their welding shop. I love this illustration. I had so much fun doing that one.
Oh, yeah. A lot going on there.
Yeah, yeah. But just the thought that, there is a voice that will guide you if you just ask for his wisdom. I do it a lot, and I've seen a lot happen in my life because of that. A lot of good stuff. At last the spaceship was ready to launch. They maneuvered it outside, placed it on the launch pad, put on their suits, and climbed inside. It was a beautiful rocket, and they were proud of their work. The voice had guided them perfectly down to every detail. Bob and Henry were ready for their big rocket launch. It was a sight to behold. Their ship was painted and prepped. Their suits were pressed, and their prayers had been answered. Reporters were everywhere. There's the big launch.
It is.
Exciting, huh?
Away they go.
And away they go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. The launch went off flawlessly, and for many days, Bob and Henry munched on Starry Bites and watched out the ship's window. The sky was beautiful, especially at night. The moon was huge and seemed to say, hurry up and get here. During the day, the sun shone brightly. The metal walls were thick and shiny, strong enough to survive the heat of the sun and covered enough to keep them warm during the cool of the night. The fridge was stacked with cookies and water, of course, and the rocket seats were comfy and their new suits were so cool. Why, they were styling in every way. Bob and Henry looked upward and thanked the voice for all his wisdom and provision. Days went by and Bob and Henry finally landed on the moon. It was not as beautiful as they thought it would be. Actually, it was kind of dusty, but the sky was clear and bright with twinkling stars all through the night. Before they could descend the steps to look around, there was a knock on the ship's door. What the heck? Through the window, they peered outside onto the steps. 2 beings stood there, one green and blue, the other pink and orange. You didn't know this, did you, Steve? They were very tall and skinny, with big eyes, kind of bent over and almost knock-kneed.
Wow.
Slowly, Henry opened the door. The creatures seemed to be harmless. What do you boys need? He asked. The creatures introduced themselves as Max and Roby. Max was the taller of the two, maybe 7 foot tall. Max exclaimed that they weren't really monsters, just creatures living on the moon, making the best of things. Henry asked if they were hungry. They explained that they had pizza, which is their favorite food, except when it was cold. Bob's eyes opened wide. Could his hot pink tummy help to warm their food? With that, Bob took a slice and pressed it up to his suit. The pizza began to steam and the cheese began to melt. Yay! Bob's acid reflux saved the day.
Wow. God can use anything.
That's right. That's right. I don't know where I come up with this stuff. Really, I don't. Henry thanked the voice for their gooey pizza. Then he brought out the box of Starry Bites and shared them. Max and Roby squealed with delight as they ate the delicious cinnamon cookies. When everyone was full, down the ship's steps they descended. Bob and Henry planted the American flag, and they all prayed that the voice would watch over them and keep them safe.
Amen.
There they all are,
Amen. Amen.
planting the flag.
Yes.
Finally, it was time for their return to Earth. Bob and Henry packed up the ship, but they were sad to leave their new friends behind. Max and Roby gave them big hugs and waved goodbye. They had become good friends and shared many stories, warm slices of pizza and Starry Bites. But Max and Roby had to stay on the moon for their own protection and health. Moon air is quite different from Earth's, you know. They would have a little trouble.
That's true.
There they are. That's where they're preparing.
Yes.
Back on Earth, Bob and Henry now live their lives with gratitude, always watching the sun by day and the moon by night. Their journey changed their lives forever. When they climbed into their beds that night, Henry and Bob reflected on their adventure. Good night, voice. Thank you for all your blessings. Amen. Remember this, friends. The voice loves you too, and his wisdom is willing to guide your steps, just like he did for Bob and Henry. And that's the end of the story.
Yes.
So,
That's sweet.
yeah.
That's very.
Yeah. So I just want to say to you, if you've got a dream, shoot for it. You might not hit the stars, but you might hit the moon. So,
Yeah.
with that, bonjour, bon appetit, coffee.
I know.
Till next time, bye-bye.